Okay. now we wait and wonder why this isn't. Why is this whack? Also whack. We'll start before too long here. Maybe 125. I'm gonna grab water. I'll be back. Oh boy. I said 130. We'll see what happens. There we go. Stephen Webster sends me an email. A scathing review of Civ. No. Let's see what audio sounds like. Is it bad? How bad is it? Oh, there's a background noise too, and that's a little annoying. Oh well. Let's see. Let's go back to Scent. I will stick around until 1:30. No one arrives. By then, I will go ahead and cancel. Shouldn't be surprised at the lack of attendance. We are officially on break. There we go. Let's go ahead and send that out. Ooh. Did that send? Or is it in my drafts? About 6 minutes left, and then we'll go ahead and go. Well, text my friend back real quick, I suppose. There we go. Sound is still on. That shouldn't be a thing. There we go. That's better. I don't know if student accounts can type in chat. I guess we'll find out together. Uh-oh. We got one that's up here. I trust you can get as many others in here as possible. What else do we do here? I can add this to the bottom. How bad is this? Not bad. You can see what a wreck my storage of Office is. We'll configure this in a sec. Let's go ahead and disable this for now. Drag that down. And then let's bring up NVIDIA real quick. We'll need more than just you in here. We'll need at least one other. I do have a message in my inbox, though. That's interesting. No, I don't. Let's move that over. I think I have some tools in my NVIDIA app that'll make this look a little bit better. We'll see, though. What do we got here? We need video. Shoot, maybe not. What is NVIDIA's? There's 5 of us watching. Oh boy. Hot dog. So we can go ahead and get started then. Let me see here. I just want to look for one last thing. I can't remember the name of the NVIDIA, like the AI enhancement for their camera. What that app is. I know I have it on my computer somewhere. Why what is it? NVIDIA Broadcast. That's what I'm looking for. By the way, because I got a new computer at some point, I did not have OBS set up. So I am redoing everything. So give me one moment. Camera. Why is it busy? Is it because it's open on here? If I remove you, does it make it not used? There we go. Pog you. We're good. Yeah, that still looks horrible. There we go. Oh, what? Hold on. Ideas. What do we want? Give me Florida beach. This is going to look horrible, but it's going to look horrible in a good way. There we go. Save image. Beach background. Hey, we're at 29 still, okay? So I'd still have time. Don't worry. Image. Downloads. Yes. Give. All right. That's background replacement. And then we want another effect. Not auto frame. Get out of here. We want video noise reduction. Turn that on. That is odd. What is that? Why is the pillow showing up? There we go. Sure. Looks good. And then I think I can set up OBS to use this as a virtual camera. We're almost there. I can replace my VTuber avatar with something else. We're so close. We're so close. I also have another email in my inbox. I wonder if that's someone else telling me that they're here. We want video capture device. Let's do NVIDIA Virtual Cam. Oh, yes! We're so in. Okay. And then we just need to drag this little guy down. Let's do some cropping, actually. Hold up. We want... What do I want? What do I want? Filters? I think it's filters. Effect? Ah, shoot. It's 31. We're late. This is all my fault. I'm the worst. Crop. There we go. Also, I apologize. The crop tool on OBS is what they call horrible. So, I think I want 300 on the left. No. 400 on the left. 500 on the left. Give me 600 on the left. Beautiful. Do I want 600 on the right? Am I centered? Oh. Give me 550. Give me 500. Beautiful. On the top, I want 300 gone. Oh, yes. What about 350? What's that look like? Even. Hold on. Nope. 300. There we go. Nope. Wait, what happened? Oh, we stepped out of frame. There we go. We're good. We're moving. All right. Sadly, the age of being a VTuber over. We are now on a beach. This is where I'm at for winter break, guys. I am in someone named somewhere in Florida. I'm in Jacksonville, Florida, and the weather's great. I actually knew we weren't going to have school yesterday, so I went ahead and flew the family down. So they're taking their naps right now. My wife's actually sick. Be praying for her. She's not feeling well, so I think she'll inevitably be okay. But anyways, we'll continue on here. Scroll to crop? Well, that's not an intuitive UI that's there for me to see, so I still blame OBS. Okay, hey, there'd we go. I believe, because let's just, okay, blitz through. I'm going to fall over my chair. Not a gamer. Let's blitz through these questions relatively quickly so we can get to the ones that we haven't covered. I think is there like 9 chapters in the book? 11 chapters? 12? Some of them actually don't have questions. But the way that these work is I have like some excerpts up here, which you can't see because I'm in the way. Let's go ahead and remove that just for a sec. Don't worry, my smiling face will be back before you know it. We've got the first chapter where we've actually covered these in class. I'm going to skip past these, right? I believe this is where we picked up in the day that you guys were down in DC. So they're walking through the park in this scene, right? And they're talking about spontaneous order. And then my question that I'm going to put in the question bank, right, is essentially reminding you of this in the book. I always try to like make sure the questions aren't coming out of left field. Like I want you guys to feel the questions are fair. So I try to jog your memory, if you will. So Amy is trying to tell Ramon about the Austrian economist F.A. Hayek's concept of spontaneous order. What in the park could have inspired her to bring up this concept? So that is like a little bit of a reading comprehension question, right? As well as the next part here, which is like the application, right? So how would you explain this concept to Ramon? Again, the whole idea is despite there being no orderer in the market, order still arises, right? Millions of people are working together across all sorts of different industries to get one particular good to market, right? There's something beautiful about that, okay? It is order, but it's spontaneous, right? No one's ordered it, but it is ordered, yeah? So, if that doesn't make sense, throw some... Does YouTube even have emotes? That is one reason why I like Twitch. The emote culture is way better. Oh my gosh, they do have emotes. These are disgusting. These are horrid. Gosh. Hot tub streamers really did ruin everything. It's kind of tragic, actually. Anyways, the piece I picked out about chapter 4 is this idea of the coordinating and signaling roles that prices play. Right, so Russ Roberts, he goes into well, I guess I should say Professor Lieber, right, Ruth. She writes about this phenomenon that happens with graphite, right? Like Chinese migration is causing an increase in demand for graphite. There's also like tennis rackets are starting to use graphite. There's graphite in brakes. Yeah, and all these people across all these industries are working together because as that increase in price happens, right, there is a coordinating function and they're a coordinating role and a signaling role, right? Prices signal that this thing has a lot more demand, right? And it has a coordinating signal because everyone gets to see that higher price. It puts an incentive in place for consumers, right? If they can find something else to use other than graphite, they'll use it, right? That's the coordinating function, right? The price going up is the signaling function, right? The coordinating function is that it gives incentives then, right? So like maybe kids find something else to write with. Maybe the brake manufacturers, they find something else to put in the brakes. Maybe the tennis racket manufacturers, they find something else to use in the tennis rackets, right? And then there's also all the consumers of all those goods. Maybe the consumers of all those goods, they don't like the alternatives, right? So then they have to go back, right? So there's this beautiful dance that's being played all because prices are signaling the relative scarcity of items, right? So as we continue on here, man, the sunlight here in Florida is very blue. Kind of crazy. It's kind of sad, you know. You can't escape blue light these days. It's even outside. So, chapter 5 is pretty interesting. I almost didn't want to put a question here just because it felt more like a narrative. Like it just felt like storytelling. It didn't feel like there was any economics lessons in there until I was like, well, you know, Russ Roberts, I think he's trying to be as concise in this book as possible. I don't think he's just going to add fluff. So in this chapter, there's this guy, what's his name? Heavy Weather, I think is his name, like some hippie. And he's like leading this protest inside of the student center. And they end up marching up to a building and they're throwing, you know, rocks, I would assume, into the glass of the building, shattering it, right? This is after Ramon had given a speech, like inspiring them. Yeah. So the question I have for you is, after Ramon gave his speech in the middle of the book, the protest took a turn that he did not expect. There's a lesson for Ramon to learn about unintended consequences. If he were to reflect on this moment, how would he recap what happened? And what do you think he could learn about the concept of unintended consequences, right? So he didn't intend for a building to be blown up, if you will, right? He didn't intend, I shouldn't say blown up, that sounds way worse. He didn't intend for the glass windows to all be shattered on this building. Yeah, but that's what happened, right? Our actions have consequences. And when you start working with larger and larger and larger groups of people, your actions can have consequences far beyond what your immediate aims were, right? So what we like to see, right, is people working together, right? So how is it that, people are able to work together and have some sort of peace? It's because the incentives align, right? Like in a workplace, the reason why a worker can give a manager can give a speech that inspires his workers to do some good is because the workers, they also don't want destruction necessarily, right? But in this case, heavy weather, okay, he wanted there to be chaos, whereas Ramon just wanted there to be some sort of like social change, right? And so Ramon, whipped these people up into an inspirational, their hearts are beating fast, the blood is rushing through their body, and then they get to the glass, and glass is just fun to break, objectively. So that's what happened, right? We're going to talk in, actually, the next chapter when we return to school, we're going to talk about unintended consequences as the result of government policies. We've actually already talked about these a little bit with perverse incentives, right? We talked about, like the snakeheads, or we've talked about like the unemployment benefits being bolstered during the COVID years, right? Those had unintended consequences. Yeah. So, chapter 6, the excerpts I have for you are these guys. Okay? It's not enough to want to make the world a better place, and it isn't enough to do something that looks like it makes the world a better place. The goal is to actually make the world a better place. And I hope that I have demonstrated to you, right, like why setting prices, why making price gouging illegal after a hurricane, right, sweeps through an area. The reason why I want to see prices go up isn't because I want people to pay more. What I would like is for the hurricane to not be there. I would like for the resources to not be as scarce. But the reality is those resources are more scarce, right? Despite what your intentions are when you're asking for the prices to not go up, okay, despite what your intentions are, you're actually hurting people. You're making those goods more scarce because there's now no incentive to bring them in. There's no incentive to conserve, right? It's just going to be the people that are first there to get it. Okay. The next quote here: the problem is really one of knowledge. How do you find out who really needs flashlights? Her point was that a parent has the knowledge to figure out who can go without a cookie, right? So I believe Ruth Lieber in this section, if I remember correctly, okay, she's now having a sit-down chat with Ramon after many, many conversations with him. And there's only one cookie left in the cookie jar, right? But there's a lot of demand, right? She has multiple kids. Both kids want the cookie. So which kid should get the cookie, right? Like the point is to say here, like the parent shouldn't auction it off. The point is to say the parent is close to the problem. The parent is much more able to decide in that instance where people are close to one another, where she does have, I guess I just say parent, it could be a father too, right? Where the parent does have the ability to make that decision, right? They're close. They know that the one kid had apple juice and sugary cereal in the morning and the other kid didn't. So, they can have the cookie more. They have the ability to make that decision, right? Folks in, the bureaucrats, whether they're in DC or in your state's capital, or if they're agents that are on the ground, they're going to have a much lesser ability to be able to distribute resources efficiently than the people in those communities, right? So instead, actually, I don't want to go on a tangent. I want to make sure we're very concise with our time because you guys are here for a supplementary thing. So let's just get to the questions, okay? Ruth Lieber said that the problem of how to ration resources is really a knowledge problem. Explain what the knowledge problem is and how economists propose that the price system is the best way to overcome the knowledge problem, right? So the knowledge problem, she's actually referencing Hayek. I'm just going to do a quick Google right quick here because I don't want to confuse it with the calculation problem that Ludwig von Mises established. Knowledge problem. Here we are. Give me the knowledge problem, right? It's about how do we organize a society, right? How do we organize an economy, right? How do we determine who gets what? Because ultimately the resources are scarce, so we have to solve that problem. Okay? We have to solve that problem. And the best way to solve the knowledge problem of deciding, who needs what the most is to use prices, right? Because they will act as a signal to show that something's more scarce, and they also act as a coordinator, a motivator, where they will encourage those that don't need it as much. Though, like, let's say cases of water, it'll discourage people from buying the cases of water that are only using it to, take a shower with, right? Because they want to clean their body. Okay. It will also, discourage people that are buying it to hoard it, right? Like maybe they're just buying it out of fear. Okay. What it will also do is it'll encourage people in the past to prepare, right? If you know that this resource is going to be more scarce in the future and you're going to have to pay for it, you're going to be encouraged to find measures of preparing, right? Like there's, I don't know how effective this is, right? But I've heard like, hey, if you are if you are about to experience a period without having water, you should fill up your bathtub, something like that, because it's clean water and your bathtub holds a lot of water, right? It sounds good on paper. Don't know how well it works, but certainly I know I would try everything if like a natural disaster is coming and I can't evacuate, right? So, referencing this quote, explain why it's important to compare like with like instead of comparing the real world to what we wish the world was like. It's not enough to want to make the world a better place, and it isn't enough to do something that looks like it's making the world a better place. The goal is to actually make the world a better place. Now, something about this, I need to warn you, okay? If you've read Ecclesiastes, you know this, right? It is not necessarily, our primary goal as Christians isn't to make the world a better place, right? The primary goal of Christians is that everyone can come to know Christ, right? However, right, we are also stewards of what God has given us, right? So we should, pursue that regardless. But like, we shouldn't have this idea that, hey, if everyone had food in their belly, clothes on their back, roofs over their head, that the world would be a better place. That is true, but it still wouldn't be perfect, right? You'd still have sin, right? And I should say, even Christians have sin. It's just that someone's paying for it, right? So making the world a better place, right? Surely if you're secular, right? If that should be your goal, I imagine, right? If you have one, is to make the world a better place, right? And it's important here to not want to make the world a better place. That's not enough, right? There are plenty of policies where people voted for politicians because these politicians supported these policies, and these politicians ended up hurting people, right? Again, because of the unintended consequences, right? Because of the perverse incentives it creates, okay? I'm thinking back to 2008 where the government was wanting to bail out the auto manufacturers, and because just giving money to companies that are unprofitable isn't particularly popular with voters, instead they decided they'd have this Cash for Clunkers program. And this Cash for Clunkers program, the general idea behind it was you can take your used car, and instead of trading in your used car to use it towards a new one, the government will pay you for your used car and destroy it, and then you can use that money when you trade in to buy a new car, right? So I think the dealerships were handling this right. Like, you trade in your used car, and the government could give you way more than the dealership was willing to give you. The car would be destroyed, and the idea here was to really increase demand for new cars, right? Get those used cars off the market, because the auto manufacturers are saying, hey, one of the reasons why we're going belly up is because we've made such great cars, people don't want to get rid of their cars. Okay, and of course what this did was really hurt poor people, okay? Because if you're a person like me, even still, right, being how many ever years into my career, I'm still not buying new cars, right? I'm buying used cars. So what we saw was a drastic reduction in the supply of used cars, increasing the price of used cars, and people that can't afford new cars are made much worse off. And what we saw, like, the whole point was to help the auto manufacturers. All this did was move the timing of new car purchases, right? Like, if you were to look at the new car sales, they were lower than average, in the years after this program, and higher than average during the time that there was money in this program. So it didn't even help really the car manufacturers. All it did was serve to make cars more expensive for those that need cars that are affordable. All right. So hopefully you can understand why it's important to understand that, right? It's not about wanting to make the world a better place. Okay, it's about actually making the world a better place. Okay, and I think that's something that if we are stewards, right? If we are Christians and we're looking to steward our resources, we shouldn't be concerned just about wanting to make the world a better place. Yes, we should be as gentle as doves, right? We should be wanting to make the world a better place, but we should also be shrewd as serpents, right? We should also be actually making the world a better place. Okay, so continuing on here in chapter 7, I love this, and I wish I had like a Macy's catalog or like a Kohl's catalog, like a catalog of like something that'd be in a retail store from 1900, right? Because like the prices then, or even just like the 70s, the prices then to the prices now are crazy, and yet there are some things that are very, very similar. Okay, they talk about eggs in this chapter. An egg today is a lot like an egg from 1900. Okay, that's the first quote. Second quote, the picture, that is static supply and demand model, okay, the things that we've drawn in class, okay, that model misses the ceaseless striving for excellence that the market demands of sellers, driving them from lower costs, followed by lower prices, followed by a higher standard of living. Eggs are the same exact thing as they were 100 years ago, right? However long ago humans started eating the eggs are similar. If anything, I mean, I imagine the eggs are probably bigger as we've, bred chickens to produce larger and larger eggs, right? So that's the reason why Ruth chooses that as an example, right? That's why Russell Roberts, right? Anytime I say Ruth Lieber, it's any of these characters are Russell Roberts, right? He's the author, okay? The reason why he chooses that example, or she, if we're talking about the character, uses the example of the egg is because they're the same, right? Some other goods, I should say this, like, and just because eggs are the same, it doesn't mean that they're easy to compare, right? It's easy to compare, like, the relative scarcity of them, right? Like, eggs are way, way cheaper. Maybe not right now. Right now there's a shortage of eggs because of an avian flu, and the government's response to there being an avian flu is to just kill all the chickens, right? Like, we're killing healthy chickens under the guise of it being, protecting us. And, like, sure, at some level there's risk, right? But I'm sure if you gave people the ability to make a choice, right? If we just labeled those cartons of eggs with some, like, red tape saying, hey, a month ago there was a bird that had the bird flu at this facility, right? You can buy these eggs and they're much cheaper. Some people would be willing to take that risk, okay? So I don't know. In any case, eggs are expensive today because of that. But some goods it's hard to compare, right? Eggs are easier because they're eggs, right? And we can tell that, like, everybody can afford more eggs. But what about TVs, right? TVs are very interesting because it's not just the case that they're cheaper, right? Like, in 1900, TVs didn't exist. Someone fact check me on that, right? Surely TVs weren't invented until like the 60s or something. It's not like there was like some sort of like, maybe there was like some sort of like projector or something of like some stop motion light show or something maybe. But, like, TVs didn't exist 100 years ago, right? So there's that you have to think, like some things are just straight up invented, right? It doesn't make sense to compare typewriters with computers today exactly, right? If you're looking at like making words. But let's go like let's just go 20 years ago or 40 years ago to when TVs very much were so, in a thing that people were buying and putting in their homes. It's not just the fact that they're cheaper, they're also bigger. So if something's cheaper, okay, so like, it's cheaper, but then it's also bigger. So how does that affect your comparison? Also, like, the resolution is better. The refresh rate is better. Like, how many images your video can be displayed in when you're watching on your TV. So, like, how do you compare those? All right, because of technological progress, right? This is why I like to say, like, I would much rather be a poor person today than a wealthy person 100 years ago, right? If I compare my life with John D. Rockefeller's life, okay, he had more money than he could ever know what to do with, right? He had to give it away. He ran out of things to find profitable to spend it on, okay? I would rather have my life than his, okay? Because he had to go outside. Did they have indoor plumbing? I don't know. Maybe I'm just I don't know, talking out of my rear end here. But the things that I have in my life, he didn't have, right? I would much rather be a poor person today, right, than a wealthy person 100 years ago, right? So, next question. How do sellers compete in a market? And if you need me to go over that top question again, any of these questions, stop by the help desk and I can chat about them with you. How do sellers compete in a market? Who do they compete with? How do buyers compete in a market? Who do they compete with? What does this competition lead to? Okay. So sellers, it's important to know your sellers are not competing with the buyers, right? Sellers and buyers want to work together to exchange goods, right? Because both of them will end up better off, right? So sellers, who do they compete with? They compete with other sellers, right? Buyers, they compete with other buyers, right? Sellers are undercutting each other. Buyers are bidding each other up, okay? And what this competition leads to is economic progress. It is, it's very beautiful the way that Russell Roberts worded this in chapter 7, right? The ceaseless striving for excellence that the market demands of sellers, driving them to lower costs, right? So, chapter 8. No one on his deathbed wishes he'd spent more time at the office, but everyone on his deathbed regrets the dreams that got away. It's gold-plated, but when I see it, I only think of a man in his dreams. This is, she's talking about I believe she would help people with their investments, like get their or maybe it was her husband, would help people get their businesses off the ground. I can't quite remember the narrative device that's in the book, but like there was a guy that would created something, and I think Ruth Lieber's like recounting his words. In any case, right, like this inventor, okay, profit is one reason that he produced something, right? Like he thought that he could make a buck doing this, okay? But for individuals, there are intangibles, right? It could be something as small as like wanting to make the world a better place. Like maybe you think that your product isn't just something that you can make a profit on. Maybe you think it's genuinely going to make people's lives better, okay? Maybe it's the fact that you just like tinkering. You just like trying to solve problems, okay? There are all sorts of especially today with open source. I mean, OBS, like what I'm using to pull in all of these assets and then stream them to you, this is open source, meaning that like no one holds a license on it, right? Or at least if they do, like it's in the comments, it's available to everybody, right? How does that make sense on an accountant's like sheet, right? The idea here is that profit's important, but it's not all that matters. And I've stressed that in class a lot, right? Especially, I mean, as Christians, like we look towards profit as a means of stewardship, but not as our end-all be-all, right? We want to be good stewards, okay, because we want to glorify God. And because of that, there are some things that are profitable on an accounting sheet, right? Like maybe maybe some underhanded dealings, right, that some businesses may do, that they should be punished for, right? Like if you are defrauding your customers, like you should be punished for that. But even though on their accounting sheet that seems profitable, right? Like for us as Christians, like we also have other incentives, right? So like we want to use profit to help us be as shrewd as serpents, right? So that when we're being gentle as doves, okay, we can make the best decisions possible, right? Hopefully by now you can answer this question of like how can intangibles be incentives. And I would encourage you to do this as you're answering any of these questions during your exam. If you see a question mark, right, that's at least one question you should be answering, right? So there's really two questions here, right? Profit's one reason companies produce, but what about individuals? You can say, okay, well, individuals produce because of profit helps individuals produce, okay? But there's also, the intangible, like just wanting to make something cool, okay? Wanting to share something with the world, right? How can those intangibles be incentives, okay? Chapter 9, without money, the motivation it provides, we'd have no idea how to serve our fellows. Oh, I love this, okay? This I actually got into it's not like a debate. When you get to work at the place that I work at, you get to have all sorts of like the most fun conversations, even if they're only in theory, whether it's about, scripture or, economics or history or otherwise. So we've had all sorts of fun conversations. We've had this one a lot, right? There's this idea that communism is heaven. And I think it's just an utterly ridiculous idea, right? Because however, like, if we are going to be in heaven, we get to worship God, right, endlessly. It's going to be amazing, right? But even if heaven's going to be like Eden, right? Even in the garden, there was work to do, right? Adam and Eve were tasked with being stewards, right? So there's going to be work to do. But how are we going to know what work to do? Okay? Now, I don't know if there's going to be heaven bucks, Jesus bucks, Yahweh bucks, okay? I don't know if there's going to be a currency, what it is, but like ultimately, we're not going to be omnipotent individuals. We're not going to be God. So like, how are we going to best know how to serve each other, right? Prices seem like a pretty rad thing to use, right? So that little tangent aside, right? Because I had heard that in the work, and I was like, I don't know, like communism is bad. Like the thing about communism, like with central planning, you don't have an ability to know how to serve your fellow man. So in any case, right? Without money and the motivation it brings, we'd have no idea how to serve our fellows, right? Prices, they have that coordinating function, right? They let us serve each other, okay? Then this next quote here, do you ever think about how much pleasure you give people who love to watch play tennis? Of course, Ramon, he's a tennis player, right? And something I think about this a lot. I mean, when I think about the people who watched the Super Bowl, how many people that was, and how many people like loved watching it. Some people hated watching it if they were, not the Eagles. Okay, where I believe there was wasn't there like a rookie player that did get like an interception and ended up getting a touchdown or something? I'm like how wild does that have to be? There's he plays for Tennessee Titans. It's like Chigoguanquo. I'm probably butchering that name, but he plays RuneScape, right? And I remember him talking about in this podcast episode he was doing about like the first time he was running through the tunnels out onto the field, like in professional games. And I was like, man, like that would have to be mind blowing, right? Like going from being a person that's up on the stands or watching through a TV. All the joy you get from watching this game, then you get to be the person, running through, doing the same thing for all these other people. There's something very beautiful to that, which kind of relates back to this chapter 8 question about like the intangibles being incentives. Okay, truthfully, I there would most likely still be a lot of professional players. Like one has to ask, would there be as many professional players if it was just the money, right? If there weren't all those other intangible things, like would there be as many professional players if there wasn't this idea? And this could be a selfish idea and a vain idea or not of like having millions of people watching you as you're playing professionally. Would there be the same level of talent in the professional leagues? Well, that's something I think about. Maybe I'm just a nerd. I don't know. Okay, so more quotes from chapter 9. Without money, the motivation provides, we'd have no idea how to serve our fellows. Where were we here? Are those really just the same questions? Why did I not just put that there? Okay, I don't have my book. I can't read whatever that paragraph is. Do I go find my book? I go find my book. I'll be right back. All right, what quote did I highlight here? Paragraph on prices on page 26. That's not right. Well, this is rough because this is I definitely have the wrong page number there. You hate to see it. Oh well, what are you gonna do? Probably put the right page number there. It's okay. It's just for the sake of book club. It's not actually a question. So there's this other quote here. We learn from those who came before us. This example misses out on how the questions get determined. There are prizes for figuring out stuff that changes people's lives. Right? Think about this. I mean, if you're an entrepreneur and you discover something and you bring it to market, the profits that you earn are because you are making people's lives better. That's beautiful, right? Like the communist idea of from each according to their ability, to each according to their need. That's what markets do, right? That's what markets do. Everyone, if you want to get more out of the market, you have to contribute more, right? If you want to consume more from the market, you have to contribute more. Okay, so the questions for chapter 9: how can the profits lead to, man, we're already at 30 minutes, so we're probably going to stop here and finish the rest of the class, rest of the questions in class soon. I don't want to make this more than 30 minutes, and we're already there. How can profits lead to man serving one another in spite of individuals only pursuing their self-interest? Even if, right? Even if you only care about making a buck, right? Even if you only care about taking resources and turning them into something more valuable in the market, just so you can make a profit, you've still turned resources into something more valuable, right? Now, again, I've demonstrated that self-interest is not selfishness, right? A person pursuing selfless goals is still self-interested, right? They're still undertaking means to achieve their goals, right? But even if you are the stereotypical greedy businessman, okay, the only way that you can make money is to make other people's lives better. Yeah? There's something beautiful about that when it comes to markets, right? When property rights are protected, right? So like if you can't commit fraud, if you can't steal, okay? The only way at that point to get something from somebody is to serve them. And as, you know, when we are, you know, worshiping a God that came to serve us, there's something so beautiful about that, right? Where the way that you put yourself ahead in the world is to serve, okay? And I think that the reason why that's so beautiful is because it is a kingdom mindset, right? This is that, like, as the disciples are bickering with each other about, you know, who's the best disciple, Jesus rebukes them and it's like the one that serves the most. He's number one, right? More than amazingly coordinating knowledge dispersed among buyers and sellers, how do prices create and spread around knowledge? Again, this is the coordinating and signaling function, right? How do they spread around knowledge? Okay, they spread knowledge through time and space. Yeah. So a mine for let's not say mine. Let's say like a oil rig, right? Dries up, no oil there anymore. Okay. Because of that, they're not going to be able to sell as much oil. If this happens enough, right? If a bunch of these oil wells are drying up, okay, we're going to see a reduction in supply. Okay, meaning that there's going to be a higher price. Yeah. And no one has to go around saying, hey, the reason why the price of oil is going up is because all these wells are drying up. It doesn't matter why. People can still respond to this commodity becoming more scarce. Yeah. So throughout the whole supply chain, we're going to see prices go up, right? People are going to act like this resource is more scarce. All the things that use this resource are now more scarce, and they're going to act that way, right? Because of not just the coordinating function of price, not just the signaling function of prices, but the coordinating function of prices. Okay. They create and spread around knowledge. So that covers, you know, across space, right? It could be like, it's not just going to be, depending on the, you know, the alternatives. Like if people on the East Coast were buying oil from the West Coast, where they're getting their oil from, right? If those people all over the world were buying it from this particular area where the wells were drying up, okay? That is, the price is going up is spreading that information across space. It's also going to spread information across time, right? Let's say that there were some analysts, right, that they saw the data from the surveys that were done in the areas in which these wells were dug, and they saw from that survey data that right around this time, at the rate that we've been drilling oil out, that the wells were going to dry up. Perhaps they started stocking up oil, right, which would have led to an increase in the demand for oil, which would have increased the market price of oil. What this would have done is, before the wells actually dried up, the price of oil would have gone up, and people would have started, other consumers, not the ones that, you know, bought ahead, other consumers would have started buying less oil if they could. Okay. So prices, they coordinate across time as well. There's a story about a guy during COVID. He went around when he saw that this disease was really breaking out across China. He went around his town and he bought out all of the hand sanitizer, and he was planning on selling it at a markup on Facebook. And then when he started selling it at a markup, on Facebook, I think the police ended up confiscating it, right? So this was an entrepreneur, right, who had information, and he was going out and buying out all of this hand sanitizer to increase the price, right? Which would have been a signal demonstrating, hey, some people think that there may, even if you weren't privy to the news that there was this disease happening in China, seeing the increase in the price of the hand sanitizer, right, would have spread around that same knowledge, right? This thing is going to be more scarce, or people at least think this thing is going to be more scarce. And the guy was right, right? COVID did come, and hand sanitizer was way more in demand than it was, right? So prices spread around knowledge, okay? As a matter of fact, this also demonstrates, okay, that when we prevent prices from rising or falling, we are preventing knowledge from spreading, okay? We are preventing knowledge from spreading, right? So we're also preventing also important, not just the knowledge from spreading, we're also preventing the incentives from being created to get people to act the way that we would want them to when something becomes more scarce. So that's it. This was already longer than a class. So if you were here, congratulations. We got through chapter 9. We still have, if I look through here, I don't have questions for chapter 12, but we have questions for chapter 13, chapter 11, and chapter 10. So 1, 2, 3 more chapters of questions to get through. So I'll see you guys when we get back in class on Tuesday. Have a fantastic day. Thanks for stopping by for these virtual office hours. I will see you Tuesday.